Hello.
Hello, hello.
We are live on our second official Facebook Live in this group. We now have over 100 people in just 1 or 2 weeks. So that's really exciting that there's interest and desire to be here. Wait a minute or two to see if people will join live. If you are here live, I see one person. If you could just comment in, just say hi, let us know who's there. So I just quick introduction in case you didn't watch the last Facebook Live. My name is Sina, and I work with Jonas, who is the founder and creator and maker of Firefly Chocolate. So we're here today to talk about his recent trip to Tanzania, where he was visiting our cacao suppliers and spent a lot of time on the farm there and learned a lot of amazing things that we wanted to share with you. Because a lot of the questions we get are, where does the cacao come from? How is it processed? How is it grown? And a lot of people are also caring about sustainable farming, sustainable processing of this magical tree. And so it's really great that people are excited about this. And we thought we'd just come on here and have a little storytelling from Tanzania. So, yeah, Jonas, I guess maybe if you could just give us an overview of what you were doing in Tanzania, who you were visiting, who our cacao suppliers are, set the stage a little bit.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jonas, founder of Firefly Chocolate. And one of my favorite parts of my job is going to our suppliers and doing visits and really spending time on the ground in the villages, on the farms, and the fermentery to really understand both the cultural context in which our cacao is grown in, the socioeconomic impact it has, environmental impact it has, and also to just get a sense for the tradition and all the many things that affect quality of the cacao. Um, Highlight of this Tanzania trip, I had actually not been, but I've been using the cacao for almost 1.5 years. So it's rare for me to start using a cacao before visiting. But fortunately, good, reliable recommendations help, and also just intuition. Like every cacao that I've chosen has come to me through intuition, and I'm a firm believer that you can taste how happy the people are who are working with it, how the environment's impacted beneficially and such. So the moment I landed in Tanzania, that was immediately apparent that intuition had won out again. So that was super exciting to see, and I learned a lot about, you know, just some of the other sides of what goes into making ceremonial cacao that hadn't been apparent to me from visiting other origins prior.
Awesome. Yeah. So can you tell me what is the structure like there? How do all the farmers come together and how they're organized?
Yeah, so in Tanzania, there's about 700 organic certified farmers that contribute their cacao to Kokoa Kamili. So we're talking kind of south and west of Dar es Salaam, which is the biggest city in Tanzania, 13 hours by car. So it's pretty far out there. The last 4 hours is entirely along dirt roads. There's not even a hotel or a place to stay in this village. We stayed at the monastery, at the monastery. Um, it's a sister's convent there. And those 700 farmers contribute their cacao to Kokoa Kamili, which is the fermentery that then ferments the harvested cacao beans and dries them and grades them for quality and exports them to Meridian Cacao, who's a cacao importer in the US, and then we buy from Meridian Cacao. So that's kind of how the cacao travels all the way to us. Kokoa Kamili, now good friends with the founders, Brian and Simran. My brother came along on the trip. They picked my brother and I up in Dar, and we drove out together. and they did an amazing job hosting us pretty much the whole time we were there. Unlike some of the other places we work with, the Kokoa Kamili is actually privately held. It's not a cooperative, but they function in very much the same way that the cooperatives do, in that they're extremely involved in helping the farmers make a good livelihood, doing agricultural extension work, really working with the community and going so far beyond what they kind of would have to do minimally to get the cacao to us.
Wow. Yeah. So you did mention to me offline that there's some really beautiful stories of how they've brought in community members to be employees of Kokoa Kamili. Um, can you tell some of those stories of the employees that work there?
Absolutely. So Kokoa Kamili has 30 employees, 27 of who have not had a formal job before, just because the village is so remote that there's not many formal jobs. So you can imagine what having a job does to feelings of self-worth and esteem and community. So it's really significant for folks to have a job. And then Kokoa Kamili also really reinvests back into their workers. Like there's one woman there who did not know how to ride a motorcycle before, but wanted to learn how to ride a motorcycle. So they invested in motorcycle lessons for her, and now she's one of the first women in that village to ride a motorcycle. And you can imagine how many young girls that inspires when they see this woman working for Kokoa Kamili riding a motorcycle. Riding a motorcycle is a really useful skill. You can kind of imagine the villages rolling hills, and so to visit all the different cacao farms, you can go by bicycle or you can go by motorcycle, and it's a little easier to travel around by motorcycle. You can get places a lot faster because the cacao is grown over a quite geographically distributed area. So that's the kind of way in which Kokoa Kamili will contribute back to the folks working there. And the other thing that was just super noticeable is that everybody was laughing while they in a good mood, laughing, bantering, like having a good time, even while they're doing the pretty hard work of fermenting the cacao. And Kokoa Kamili provides a lunchtime meal for everybody, so everybody eats together. We took part in the meal. It was delicious and healthy. So that's kind of what Kokoa Kamili does on that level. And to draw a contrast, a typical agricultural worker in Tanzania will earn something like $1.75 a day, which is practically nothing. And it's very like cutthroat, competitive conditions. The workers have very little stability. So it's quite a welcome alternative.
Wow, that's really special. I love that image of everyone joining together for lunch and having fun while growing the cacao, because that's so important for the energy of what we end up eating and drinking. So can you talk a little bit about the benefits? You said there's 700 small farmers and then they sell the beans to Kokoa Kamili. So what are the benefits of having like small farms versus just one big farm that's kind of owned by a main farmer?
Well, you get a lot more distribution of income. So, here's 700 smallholder farmers. All their families are benefiting from growing cacao. It really supports the community rather than just going to one person. And usually when power and wealth is concentrated in that way, it really doesn't trickle down to the workers and to the people who are growing the cacao in the same way. So actually, all of our sourcing is all from smallholder farms like this. The average farm size is 2 acres. It also just leads to a lot more diversity. Typically large cacao projects are pretty heavily monocropped, are not doing the best things for the local ecosystem. But when villagers are stakeholders and are, they live there. So they're naturally concerned with the ecosystem impact. And so distributing the purchasing across all those villagers gives them financial incentive that then can support ecosystem restoration and the like.
Awesome. So tell us about what you did there. Like when you were.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time when chocolate makers come visit, they kind of get the quick tour and then they leave again. They're there for like a day or two.
Yeah.
But I always try to spend a little bit longer at Origin, and at first they don't usually quite know what to do with me. But I just tell them I want to embed in their operations, and so we spend a day out on a cacao farm where we participated in harvesting the cocoa pods off the tree. Um, so that was a really neat experience, just tucking into all these cacao trees, finding the pods that were ripe, learning how to use a sharp knife to cut the pods off the trees, and gathered them in 5-gallon buckets. And then we brought them back to this giant pile of pods that was collecting at this one family's house. And then in the afternoon, we cut open all those pods with a machete to scoop out the white seeds inside. And prepare those for the fermentation process. So that was kind of one day in the life at Kokoa Kamili. We spent another day, actually pretty much every day, we helped carry out the drying beds. So after the cacao is done fermenting, it needs to be dried for about a week, and it gets spread out on these mesh tables, basically, so that the air can circulate underneath it, and so that the cacao stays off the ground. I mean, you see so much cacao drying that's done on the ground, and a lot of sticks and stones gets into it. It's really not good for the quality. So they actually store the cacao in kind of like a big shed at night, and then they carry it out so that it's under the sun during the day, and then they bring it back in. So you can imagine it's a lot of tables to lift. So my brother and I hopped in every day to do that. Another day, we actually help with the fermentation. So the fermentation every 2 days, the piles need to be rotated, and that's turning a 500-pound box of wet cacao is a fair bit of work as well. So we actually zipped up in jumpsuits because it's quite a messy process, and got to help out with that. And then we biked around the community. We visited different farms. Just kind of got to hear some of their stories, as well as just kind of more informally walk around the community and just get a feel for it. And then we also visited just some of the natural ecosystems in the area for some hiking. Visited a local elephant conservation project. So we kind of did a full range of activities.
Wow. Sounds like you really got to embed into the community and the project. So you got kind of all the phases of the cacao harvesting process, which is really special. I'm just curious how much cacao, like that day when you were harvesting the pods and then cutting them open to get the fruity, like the pulpy cacao beans, how much did you do in that one afternoon?
Well, there were 6 of us extracting the seeds from the pods, and the owner of the farm, Sarah, she was chopping the pods open. I think we did about 180 kilograms of wet cacao, which after fermentation will make about 60 kilograms of dried cacao, which is enough for 1 sack of cacao, which you could say will make about 100 pounds of ceremonial cacao. In the end. So it's a lot of work that goes into it on the farm level. And I think it's really important to do that kind of work, even as a maker, to really understand what goes into it, and so that we are really careful with the cacao, that we really value all the effort that's gone into it before it's come to us.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? So I know, I mean, we pay premium prices for cacao, and since you were there, like embedded in the process, you must have gotten a better understanding of like, what exactly we're paying for. Like, what makes the quality so much better than other cacao, even in Tanzania. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, oh, gosh, I have a long list of how Kokoa Kamili does things differently than standard cacao growing in Africa. So that was super illuminating. Just in terms of pricing, the farmers receive about a 40% higher price than they would otherwise. So that makes a pretty big difference in their livelihood.
That's a
Um,
fair trade, right? Too, like the
exactly. So yeah, a fair trade premium is typically 10%. Now you have to understand that commodity cacao will have about 10% sticks and stones in it. So, because they'll actually bulk up cacao purchases or cacao bags before they sell it. So, if you're paying 10% premium, which is considered the fair trade premium, you're basically paying to not have sticks and stones in your cacao, which I would kind of view as a baseline. So, from that perspective, fair trade premium isn't really that meaningful. It's like, okay, cool, you're getting cacao without contaminants in it. So really, you want to pay significantly more than that um, in order to have any sort of social impact at origin. The other thing that's key to note is that most small farmers in Africa actually have to ferment their own cacao before being able to sell it. So all that work that the fermentery does, that Kokoa Kamili does, normally the farmers have to do. And so that means it's actually both a lot less control over process and quality in the fermentation step, and the farmer has a lot more work on their hands, and they don't make as much money. So that was something that consistently came through in the farmer interviews, was that they actually have more time on their hands, both to tend their farms and to just spend time with their families.
wow.
So, and interestingly, wet cacao purchasing by a fermenter like Kokoa Kamili was actually outlawed in parts of in southern Tanzania. So it's like not even allowed, and they had to jump through several legal hoops to convince the local district government to not also outlaw it.
Wow.
So yeah, they really kind of did that region a favor by establishing wet cacao purchasing as a model in that region, because it's a relatively new model, and so it's kind of poorly understood at the government and district levels, and they don't necessarily know to value it.
Yeah, sounds like they're really, really invested in really working with the local economy and government to do the right thing for the farmers and the communities, which is really special.
Yeah.
Um, so last question. If anyone has questions, please pop them in now. I think we're trying to keep these to about 20 minutes. But you did share with me that you shared some of your Tanzanian drinking chocolate with the Kokoa Kamili team and some of the farmers, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how that went. Oh no. No. Okay, I think we're back. Jonas, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh no. Ah. Okay. While we're waiting for Jonas to rejoin, we do have a question. Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Here we are. All right.
Awesome.
I got your question.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, in particular, one of the Kokoa Kamili employees, Alessandro, really enjoyed the 100% cacao.
Uh-oh. I don't know if it's his Wi-Fi or mine. Um, okay. Well, in case I'm live, someone asked, what's your favorite kind? That is a very... Hello? Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
I don't know if I'm freezing or you are or what's going on.
Did you catch my response?
I got part of it. You said Alessandro really enjoyed the 100%.
Exactly. They don't have access to 100% cacao. That's made in a really loving, caring way. So it was special for them to have that. We left everything I brought there.
Oh, and what a full circle. They get to really see like all the work that they're putting in gets put into this. This is the product that one of the products that's being made from that. So that's a beautiful completion of the circle.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, we got one question. What is your favorite kind?
of cacao. As a chocolate maker, I have to say I love them all. I cycle between them based off of how I'm feeling and what I know the different characteristics of the cacaos to be. So that's kind of why you see so many cacaos from Firefly. Is I like having a whole bunch of options in my cacao on my cacao shelf. Just because I drink it every day, I like the variety, and we actually have a whole bunch of new kinds coming up soon. So that's exciting. Stay tuned.
Yeah, maybe that will be our next video next week.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Someone says, another comment, I'm doing a continuation of my spirituality series on cacao tomorrow. What are some main components to entice my following to experience ceremonial cacao?
Well, what I would say, well, gosh, there's so many enticing things about cacao. I think cacao is spiritual. Yeah, I mean, I think cacao as a plant medicine is incredibly accessible and incredibly gentle. One of my friends says it perfectly that when you ingest cacao, it goes to your heart, and it'll give you what your heart needs. So you can come into it not knowing very much about plant medicines, and cacao will work with you in a beneficial way. And cacao is extraordinarily responsive to prayer and to gratitude. So you can really activate the cacao with some beautiful blessings, some intention setting, and it'll really work with you. I've been surprised again and again at how quickly and how responsive the cacao is when I come to it to work with it intentionally. So unlike many other plant medicines, it's just accessible on a daily basis, and it's easy to integrate relatively to other things, and it's totally legal. Does that answer the question? I'm happy to answer follow up.
So. I'll add one thing because I have an idea. One thing that I really love to remind people of when, like, people that are on a spiritual path is cacao is a very tangible practice. So a lot of times, we try and meditate every morning, or we do these kind of practices where we're trying to connect with ourselves. And cacao is something very physical that we get to make and we can sing to and we can bless and we can offer to the earth. It's a physical thing that we can hold, and that can be really helpful for people that are, newer to the spiritual path or just trying to connect in some way.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's definitely brought just a regular ritual component into my life, because I want to drink my cup of chocolate, and then drinking my cup of chocolate makes me sit down and do some gratitude and some intention setting, and then it makes me do that with my friends. So it also really brings in my friends and community into my own spiritual practice.
Yeah, that's actually a really great one. I think cacao is a beautiful opening to have more intentional sharing with your friends, your loved ones, your partners, even like your children, your family. It can really just create a container to have more intentional connection.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question. If you have any follow-ups, feel free to write in the comments. So the one other thing I wanted to share is that we did just do a bit of a series on our Instagram about Tanzania. And so there's a lot of photos that you can see of the process of Fiona's harvesting and cutting open the pods and meeting the farmers and employees of Kokoa Kamili. So feel free to check that out on Instagram. It's at Cacao Ceremony, the handle. I think that's all we have for today. Anything else you want to add, Jonas?
No, thank you all for tuning in. I'm excited to share kind of an origin report like this with the community. And later this year, we'll be releasing a social impact report, so that'll be something excited to share with you all. And early next year, I'll be headed towards Guatemala to visit our new origin there. So we'll do a similar style impact report or just origin report after that. So thanks y'all for tuning in, and if you're watching this afterwards, thanks for following up. And we're excited to share more with you in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.